And my
Oh,
my sister-in-law actually has some family down there, so. Oh, yeah. Have you been?
I haven't been there, but my brother has a couple times.
Motivated for.
It's like nowhere else. It really
It's not
is.
always-
Start without
He said he has those crazy,
that
crazy
motivation.
speedboats that go in the rivers.
That's
That's
how,
like
that's how
crazy.
cut it by looks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my brother did.
Is he on the North Island or the South Island, you know?
I remember.
The North Island's where Auckland and more developed. South Island's where the fjords are.
I think it was in the South. It was some river. They have like these jet boats. They
you have?
rivers with. You're kind of like my brother's like, oh, it was kind of wild. I go, yeah, dangerous too. You hit a rock.
Yeah.
Good point.
Regardless of where, yeah, you hit a rock. It's not a good day.
Okay, let's have a call to order, please.
I better go.
Today is March 21st, 2024, the Planning Commission meeting. May I have a roll call vote? A roll call, please.
We'll vote to roll
We'll
call.
vote
Vote
later.
for the roll call, yeah.
Commissioner Light,
Present.
Commissioner Craig,
Present?
Commissioner Gaddis,
Here.
Commissioner Conroy,
Here.
Commissioner Lamb,
Here.
Chairperson Hazeltine.
Here. Thank you. Okay, salute to the flag. And ready, begin.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. So we have, I think it was 2 blue folder items. If we could have a motion to receive and file the blue
Motion to
folder.
receive and file blue file
And
order
a
items.
second?
Second?
Okay, that's unanimous. Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Consent calendar, business items, except those formally noticed for public hearing or those pulled for discussion are assigned to the consent calendar. The commission members may request that the consent calendar items be removed, discussed, or acted upon separately. Items removed from the consent calendar will be taken up under the excluded consent calendar section below. Those items remaining on the consent calendar but will be approved in one motion. The chair will call on anyone wishing to address the commission on any consent calendar items on the agenda, which has not been pulled by the commission for discussion. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once, and comments will be limited to a total of 3 minutes. Do we have any comments on the consent calendar? Okay, and no one's online. Okay, perfect. Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion to approve the consent calendar items.
And a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, unanimous. Okay, so the first one is public participation on non-agenda items. This section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on this agenda for action. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, will be considered first under this section. Do we have anybody? Did you want to talk about?
I'm here to observe.
Okay, thank you. Any calls? Anyone online?
No one online has raised their hand.
And then do we have any written comments?
There's no e-comments.
Okay, thank you. So motion to approve and file? Nothing? Okay. Okay, so the next one is ex parte communication, and that's on J1, which is a public hearing for consideration of an exemption declaration and conditional use permit to allow the operation of an animal grooming business in an approximately 2,025 square foot tenant space within an existing multi-tenant commercial building and property located in a mixed use MU3A zone. Okay, motion to open the public hearing?
Should we do the ex parte first?
Oh,
right?
yes, ex parte. Okay. Let's start with Sheila. Did you
I
have
have
any?
nothing to report.
Commissioner Lamb.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, and Commissioner Conroy, I want to always call you by your first name, Conroy.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, Commissioner Gaddis.
Yeah, for L1, conversation with the mayor and conversation with Commissioner Wayne Craig.
Okay, hold on one second then. We're going to do L1 and J1 then at the same time, right? Okay, you want to start over again then, Sheila?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. For J1, I have nothing to report. For L1, I spoke with Director Scully. I've spoken with Mayor Light. I've spoken with Commissioner Hazeltine. And I've spoken with Economic Director Gapovich, thank you, and members of the public.
Okay, Commissioner Conroy, did you have anything else you wanted to report since
No, I
we're
have
doing
nothing to
both?
report.
Okay, then you did everybody, Commissioner Gaddis?
I did everybody.
Okay, Commissioner Craig.
Commissioner Gaddis, Mayor Light, and Councilmember Nierenheim.
Okay, and I'd like to make notice that Commissioner Boswell is here now. And Commissioner Boswell, do you have anything to report on the public hearing?
Just that it's nice that the world is returning to normal,
What was abnormal? Nothing.
now that I'm late again.
Oh, okay.
So we're doing J1 and L1 together?
Yeah,
Okay. I spoke to a person of the public.
okay, Commissioner Light.
Briefly on the street tonight, spoke with Gene Solomon, a little tangentially on L1.
Okay, great. And I spoke with Commissioner Lamb. I spoke with Mayor Light. I spoke with people of the public, and I spoke with the city personnel. Yeah, staff.
Victoria?
Yeah, staff. Okay, great. So the first one then would be J1, and I already read what that was. So can we have a motion to open a public
Motion
hearing?
to open a public hearing on item J1.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. So we are going to take testimony. Do we have any testimony regarding J1 is the opening of a grooming business? No? Anybody online?
We have one, he attended. No comments.
Okay. No written, or no one wants to speak on that?
We have an attendee. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand.
Well, maybe they
Mark
could be
Hannon,
sworn
if you would
in
like to
if they're
speak,
going
please
to.
raise your hand.
Yeah.
No.
No, okay. So we actually are going to continue this public meeting until May 16th, 2024, because the business needed to come up with a parking study. So can I get a motion to continue the public hearing until May 16th?
Motion to continue the public hearing till May 16th.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous, thank you. Okay, items continued from previous agenda. We don't have anything. Okay, so now L1 is discussion and possible action on the proposed expansion of the Harbor Commission purview on the newly vacant AES power plant site and the surrounding properties. And we have probably a presentation from Mr. Kopovich?
Kapovich, yeah.
Kapovich. Okay,
I have a question.
yes.
Is this a public hearing for J1?
It is not.
Oh, okay, so we didn't, okay.
Oh, for J1, you said? Or
L1.
I'm sorry, L1?
L1 is, no, it's a
Oh,
discussion
okay,
item.
so we didn't
Not a public
actually,
hearing
okay,
item.
fine. Good point, Sheila. Okay, Greg, go ahead.
All right, we're going to turn it over to.
Yeah, thank you.
Waterfront Economic Development Director, Greg Capovate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sean. It's good to be back. I think it's been a few months since we started talking about ACAP, so it is good to be before you again. I'm going to introduce Mio Iwasaki. She's an admin analyst for the Waterfront Economic Development Department. But before I do, this discussion item, we won't be making any changes tonight. We won't be taking any action. We're just gauging your opinion and your recommendation to City Council on the topic at hand. This is a strategic planning item. City Council directed us almost a year ago to explore the possibility of expanding the purview of the Harbor Commission beyond the harbor.
Greg, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure.
By not taking any action, does that mean that we're just discussing it, then you might be coming back again for our decision, or we're supposed to be giving decisions?
You're going to give us a recommendation, but
Okay,
we're
tonight.
not going to be taking any action to a text amendment or anything like that.
Okay.
We're going to report back to City Council what you guys and your thoughts were on the topic, as well as reporting back to what we heard from the Harbor Commission as well.
Okay, perfect.
And then City Council is essentially going to say, yes, go ahead, make the proper text amendments, come back to Harbor Commission, come back to Planning Commission with those exact text
Okay.
amendments.
Okay.
Or don't do anything, we like the purview as is, and we go away forever and we never talk about this again.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So with that, I'm going to turn it
Yes,
over to Mia.
Please.
Thank you. So good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for having us tonight. Tonight, we're here to discuss item L1, the proposed expansion of the Harbor Commission purview. So as Greg mentioned, as part of the strategic plan, City Council has directed us to prepare this item for discussion regarding the possible expansion of the Harbor Commission's role and area of responsibility for planning matters. So to grant the purview of the proposed area, text amendments would be needed to update 2 maps in our municipal code, which outline the areas of purview between the Planning Commission and the Harbor Commission. So if council supports the proposed expansion, staff would update the text amendments for review by the Harbor Commission, Planning Commission, and City Council at future public hearings. The current jurisdiction of the Harbor Commission is limited to the area outlined by the yellow boundaries. It's important to note that the Harbor Commission reviews all development entitlement applications with the exception of proposed zone changes and general plan amendments, which remain under the purview of the Planning Commission. Our proposed expansion can be seen by the red boundaries in the map. So this would include all properties west of North Catalina Avenue and North Pacific Avenue. So some notable properties include the AES power plant, the Sonesta Hotel, the vacant Gold's Gym site, mini storage facility, SoCal Edison right-of-way on Redondo and west of PCH, the U.S. Postal Service property, Salvation Army property, the Dirt Farm property, and the closed U.S. Bank property. So the Harbor Commission's rationale behind this proposal includes 3 key points. First are the capacity and development considerations. So the execution of the amenities plan and future economic development could trigger the need to utilize properties adjacent to the harbor. We have over 40 projects in the harbor area, all with the intent to upgrade and enhance amenities. And so that would mean we're attracting more and more visitors to the harbor. And so the amenities plan also directs the city to explore potential locations for dry boat storage as well as a new food hall. The increased square footage of adding a new food hall structure, for example, would trigger additional parking requirements. So it would emphasize the need to utilize properties in the proposed jurisdiction to accommodate for the overflow of parking. So this expansion would allow the Harbor Commission to better integrate these additional needs and manage increasing demand in the waterfront. Second are the impacts on the harbor and surrounding areas. Future projects are likely to have impacts on traffic circulation, parking, revenue generation, as well as public access to the harbor. So expanding the purview of the Harbor Commission would allow for a more cohesive approach to the development and impacts of these projects in that area. And third, anticipated project changes in the proposed jurisdiction would present opportunities for new projects and uses. That further emphasizes the need for an integrated decision-making body that's well-versed in the dynamics of the harbor area specifically. So last month, on February 12th, we presented this item to the Harbor Commission. The commission unanimously supported the expansion, which would include the properties west of North Catalina Avenue and North Pacific Avenue. The commissioners noted the potential redevelopment of properties as well as the proximity of the proposed expansion area to the harbor as reasons for their support. And they also discussed the possibility of including Zuliger Park and Veterans Park as part of the expanded purview. The commissioners noted that both parks are open space areas and considered gateways to the harbor. So including Zuliger Park and Veterans Park would provide the commission with authority over future improvements to both parks, very similar to the authority they have over Moonstone Park, which is by Mole B. So this map just shows where Zuliger Park and Veterans Park are located in relation to the harbor. As you can see, it is in very close proximity to the waterfront. So if the City Council supports the proposed expansion, staff would prepare the text amendments to update these two maps seen in our municipal code. So before we move forward with any questions or discussion, we'll recap the Harbor Commission's recommendations. First is to support the expansion of the Harbor Commission's purview to include properties west of North Catalina Avenue and North Pacific Avenue. And second is to support the inclusion of Zuliger Park and Veterans Park as part of the expanded purview. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who wants to start on that? Okay,
I had a
Commissioner
question.
Craig.
Thank you. Great presentation. I would like to ask with regard to, so basically this is going to have to do with any kind of improvements, but if an improvement required a conditional use permit or a zoning variance, would that still come to the Planning Commission for approval?
No, it wouldn't. It would go to the Harbor Commission. With the exception of, excuse me, general plan amendments and zone changes, those would stay with this commission. But every other entitlement, a variance, a design review, a conditional use permit would all be under the purview of the Harbor Commission.
Okay.
So zoning changes, sorry, just to clarify, zoning changes would come to the Planning Commission
Correct. Correct.
and conditional use permits would stay at the Harbor Commission.
Correct.
And currently, for those areas, everything goes to the Planning Commission?
Right.
Yes. For the expanded area, that area in red, everything comes to you guys right now. That's correct.
Question, so this is coming to us for our blessing somehow, but does it really matter since it's a city council decision?
They certainly.
It matters, absolutely.
absolutely.
They value your opinion.
Light, that's your job.
Okay, just checking. I want to make sure why I'm here.
We deliberate. If we don't
Greg's
like the
closer to
idea,
this
City
than I
Council will
am, but
know.
I don't know of any predisposed position. It was kind of an investigate and discuss with the two.
I certainly don't think their mind's made up.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have
Is
another,
that what you meant?
That is what I meant.
I have another question.
Go ahead,
I mean,
Commissioner Gaddis.
so zoning, on the one hand, would be under our purview, conditional use permits under their purview. So in a sense, as the power plant is a conditional use permit right now, I mean, it's a major use of the land that can be changed without the Planning Commission having any say in the matter.
Correct.
Okay. Would there be any way to do it so that both zoning changes and conditional use permit would also have to be approved by the Planning Commission?
You can make any recommendation you want tonight.
It seems to
That
me.
might be a good idea.
Yeah, it seems to me to
actually.
be a major, because again, we have such things as a power plant sitting there operating under a conditional use permit, which is a major land use impact, right? Sure. And if we're going to have zoning under our, a sort of double purview, that is, they would recommend a zoning change. And then, I mean, obviously, anything that goes on down there would be pretty major and would be subject to a vote of the people and such, but then the conditional use permit, it seems to me, is also heavily impactful, but not necessarily demanding a vote, of the people. So,
That is kind of brilliant, because what it does is it gives the Harbor Commission the purview to, talk about the stuff, have it in front of them.
Plan
and
it
then
all out.
Plan it all out the way they see it, right? So that we have those seven people, right, 7? And then it comes back to us to give input. I think that's actually kind of brilliant.
yeah, because then they can, do their whole plan for that whole area, which makes perfect sense. Right. Because it's going to, as you say, it impacts parking and, the parks and everything like that. So you have one grand vision for the area with all the little parts of it and stuff like that. And some of that's going to require zoning changes perhaps and conditional use permits and stuff like that. And then they simply, put together their plan, put together the changes that they want in the land use, and then come back to us and say, okay, here's what we have. Here's the way we would like this to work. And then we evaluate it and go ahead and approve them. Just like we would in a zoning change.
So if I could summarize, because I need to understand this. So you're proposing that general plan amendments, zone changes, and conditional use permits for the expanded area remain with this commission, but design reviews, variances, and any other entitlement I haven't mentioned would in fact go to the Harbor Commission.
I would say I don't want to necessarily go as far, and I don't know how far this really goes, but a conditional use permit is a land use change as opposed to a design review, right? Which is kind of a different.
Well, a conditional use permit, it's a conditionally permitted use. So what it basically is a little higher, it's certainly a higher level than a permitted use.
Right.
But it is definitely an entitlement. It's not in
Right.
the realm of a zone change. So those are, where it's segregated now is the discretionary entitlement authority moves to the Harbor Commission. The zone change general plan amendment level of change stays here. So
And I'll add, if there's a project that comes in and it's got a design review, a conditional use permit, and a zone change, the zone change triggers that whole group to go to you guys.
Right.
You wouldn't just look at the zone change and rely on the Harbor Commission to do the
combination.
use permit and the design review. They would certainly get to review it and they would be a recommending body to you guys, but that zone change kind of takes that whole grouping and sets it on your plate.
Yeah, that's the way it currently works, right? And so and again, it makes perfect sense for the Harbor Commission to have purview over this whole area, which is great. But I do think such things as zoning changes, which we would retain authority over, but I think also conditional use permits, we should probably retain authority on, and they don't have that now. He was asking me the question, do they have that? Does the Harbor Commission now have conditional use permitting? And the answer is, well, down in their current
In the
area by
current
the water,
location,
but not
yes.
for the whole rest of that area.
Correct.
So within the current
Purview.
harbor area, they
Yeah.
have that?
Yeah, conditional, they do have conditional use permit in the harbor.
Correct.
Okay.
Within the current borders that we saw.
Correct.
So then that
put
would
the map
be,
back up,
that would be
please?
in their expanded area.
There you go.
Yeah, so it would be the expansion that, because they can do, within the harbor, they can do zoning changes, right? Okay, they can't do zoning changes.
zone changes and stuff? No.
That goes to you guys.
Okay.
Any zoning change essentially comes to us regardless.
All zoning changes come to this.
Okay,
body.
What we're
excuse me.
saying is we want to retain conditional use permits in the expanded area.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's
far.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Commissioner Boswell?
What is it that the Harbor Commission thinks they can do better than the Planning Commission in this area that they want to take over? Other than they think that they'll have maybe economies of scale and they'll maybe have projects that will expand out of their harbor area into a non-harbor area. But what is it that they're expecting to be able to do better, more efficiently than the Planning Commission is already capable of doing and has been doing?
I would respectfully say that they're not viewing this as an opportunity to say that one commission can do it better than the other commission.
But that's my question.
That's
It's
not what
certainly
they're saying.
something that needs to be considered when we look at why are we giving away this land? Okay, when they added the 2 parks, that's ridiculous. What are they ever going to develop on those parks? Those parks are going to stay the way they are. Okay, wanting those 2 parks, in addition to all of that, as an afterthought, hey, let's just take the whole area. That's what made me suspicious of this whole thing. I don't see that there's anything that they might have come before them that they need to evaluate as far as the harbor and projects in the harbor that would perhaps need to overflow into this other area for parking considerations and parkland and whatever, that the Planning Commission isn't perfectly capable of doing and coordinating with them to do. One of the things that I think we need to keep in mind is that if we do this, that's the way it's always going to be. It's never going to go back. So we have to think about this very carefully, and we have to say what's motivating it, what are the tangible benefits, what are the economic benefits, and is it all just us sitting around wasting time talking about something that doesn't need to happen?
Okay. And yes, Commissioner Light?
I'm a member of the Kings Harbor Yacht Club, as just full disclosure, and I do know their view on this, and I've heard it. I haven't spoken to anyone there, but I do know a little of the history there. And there is, in the past, they used AES for overflow parking for things such as that. And the plan, at least discussions are, of rebuilding the yacht club and having more dry space. They have a waiting list.
Dry boat storage.
Boat storage, yeah.
Yeah, boat storage and the like. So that's where some of this is coming from. Some of those commissioners, some of the harbor commissioners are members of that yacht
Oh,
club.
I see. Okay,
Yeah,
good point.
so I suspect that's one of the things there. Personally, it doesn't affect my view on whether this is a good or bad idea. I'm open-minded with this, and I definitely understand your concerns there. No one likes to give up power. So there has to be a good reason to do it. If we can do a better job than they, that would concern me if we are giving up that power.
Right.
The issue, though, that comes to mind is, are they in a better position to integrate what that should become for the mandate they have, which is
Right.
making it more accessible, freer parking there, all of those types of things. So I think it's got to be thought out, and I agree. This is into perpetuity until someone else brings this up 20 years down the road.
Yeah, it probably won't change back.
But I do
Okay.
like what Commissioner Gaddis is saying. Is there a way to retain some, because we know better the rest of the city, they know better the harbor. That's an in-between area. Is there a way we can come up with to work together on that?
1 second. Okay, Commissioner, are you finished? I apologize.
Yeah, I'm
No,
finished.
Commissioner Lamb
There's
hasn't
more on
spoken
that
yet.
topic.
Yeah, one more.
I have
So you'll
something
be back.
actually to
I'll be
add
back.
to you. I really appreciate your comments, Mr. Boswell, Commissioner Boswell. So I wanted to share a similar perspective, and hopefully it answers some of these questions. So my view is that this is not about purview. This is about, and in fact, we're being asked to approve a change in the map. That's what we're being asked to do, to approve from the old yellow to the red. Okay? Well, the question is why would we change, and this goes to you, why would we change the map? So, so let's start there. First, what is the particular coordinates of change? So it's changing, adding Redondo up to Catalina and down to North Pacific. Okay, the question to be answered is, why should it be changed? Okay, if the boundary is changed to the extent that the AES and adjacent property is within the harbor and pier area, then by default, the Harbor Commission oversees that area. So it's not about purview, it's about what would make us decide that that area is important to be included in the pier harbor plan. Okay. So we're asking for a justification. What is the justification for moving this? One, it's to, after speaking with Mayor Light and others, it's to allow for the proposed area to be recognized, included, integrated, and developed as one harbor pier area plan, allowing for congruent development from Torrance Boulevard to Redondo Avenue, right? The idea is to make this now part of the harbor pier area plan, okay? Number two, it avoids, by moving it avoids piecemeal development, right? On one end, oh, well, we think, a hotel should go on one end, and then later, 5 years down the line, oh, well, we want a hotel down here. And then they cannibalize each other. Okay, so it needs to be a coherent plan all the way from one end to the other. To prevent the triangle area from becoming a dumping, or shall we say, a better term would be offloading ground for uses that can't fit in the amenities plan, such as we talked about before. Oh, well, we don't have enough, we don't have enough parking, so let's take the, AES. Oh, we need dry boat storage. Oh, let's just put it over there. That's not a plan. That's offloading. And we don't want offloading. We want a high quality, thought out, congruent plan for the whole area. And finally, 4, ensure that the harbor pier area plan is developed and a high quality community engagement process is implemented, right? So we're not going to offload things onto the property. We're not going to piecemeal. We're going to have a quality plan that has robust community engagement, not just from harbor, members of the harbor, the yacht clubs, et cetera, but from the entire community, because this is a harbor pier plan. So that's the reason, that's the justification for this. And
Sheila, could that plan be done by not putting, what's the benefit of having the Harbor Commission? If we could do that plan as a planning commission, we could ask that, nothing happens in there, or hope that nothing happens in there without a plan. I hope that would never happen again here, but I'm sure it will. Can you tell me what?
So if you move the boundary, you make it more conducive for an integrated plan. And I think, am I hearing you correctly that if the boundary wasn't moved,
Right.
could there still be an integrated plan?
Yes, I think that's my question.
Right. I think the answer to that is concerns that without the boundary being established, that there could be a tendency or a risk, shall we say, there could be a risk that piecemeal would occur. So this would mitigate the potential, risk is always potential. Mr. Oswald, I'm sure you know that, right? Risk is always a potential.
Yeah.
So this is a sort of an extra safeguard.
Okay, good.
And this is my perspective on this after talking with others.
Commissioner Boswell, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so maybe I'm not understanding what the Harbor Commission is. The Harbor Commission, as I understand it, is just the Planning Commission, but for the harbor area, and has some steeper requirements to be on that commission, because you have to be familiar with stuff that happens in a harbor. You have to be a boater, or something like that, right? You have to have sailing experience,
Yeah,
right?
one qualification's a boater. Others are an attorney, an architect, a developer, property management, leasing agent. It's very, very strict.
Instead of being boat familiar? Or in
Correct.
addition to being boat familiar?
No, separate.
Separate. So an attorney that's never even seen the ocean could be on the Harbor Commission.
Correct.
That's scary. So,
And we do have those, yeah.
As we say.
we got them on, we got them in other areas, so it's not really that scary. So because of the requirements to be on the Harbor Commission, it is a little bit of a different flavor. But it's still with the idea of addressing issues related to the harbor. To expand inward, away from the harbor, doesn't really make it a Harbor Commission anymore. I mean, where does the harbor end? At Prospect, at Hawthorne? I mean, where does the harbor end? It ends where the harbor ends, as far as I'm concerned. To add these other things in there may turn out to be a good idea when we've really beaten the socks off it. But from right where I'm standing right now, I'd like to hear some more good reasons. And to say that having the Planning Commission deal with this area that the Harbor Commission thinks is more appropriate to be in their purview results in piecemeal, I don't understand how that could happen.
It has.
Any commission could say, well, that's piecemeal, we're not going to approve it. The projects, I mean, nothing originates with these commissions. These commissions are tasked with, unless I've got the Harbor Commission wrong again, commissions are tasked with being given projects and situations to evaluate and make recommendations to the city council. Okay, so if someone wants to do some piecemeal project in Harbor 2.0, and the Planning Commission can't evaluate that properly, what makes us think the Harbor Commission can do a better job of that? Or maybe they won't, because they're so focused on harbor stuff that this stuff that's clearly not the harbor, they might not be the best decision makers, the best people with the right background and history of deliberating on inland projects to make the best decision for the city and make the best recommendation to the council. So I'm waiting for something that says, aha, it is a no-brainer. Let's give it to them. I don't see that as of yet. So I'm looking for someone to tell me, what is it that the Harbor Commission needs to do in that area that we couldn't do at least as well, if not better?
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gaddis.
Okay, so here's the aha on the whole thing, is that the idea is we have the potential of developing that whole area in terms of a balance of parks, parking, such things, dry boat storage, other things ideas that are the people in the community, people who live by that area, people who use the harbor, patrons of the harbor, and patrons of the pier. So there are a lot of ideas floating around, but the idea is now we have the potential to combine it with a larger park and parks and harbor as public access places that are oceanfront oriented and
are you not capable of making that discussion
well,
and that
here's the
decision
thing, but
to yourself?
a plan needs
We
to.
have a harbor guy right here.
We do, but.
We've got our own
but-
captive harbor
But
guy.
those plans need to be integrated, and when you have two commissions doing things, but here's the thing, what this is adding to it is you have the Harbor Commission that comes up with these ideas and a plan, they approve a plan.
They do come up with these ideas?
Well, yeah, these ideas are
start these
brought to
projects.
them, they consider them.
They don't come up with them then.
Oh, okay,
Or do
Doug, you're being argumentative. Let's relax a little bit. So-
I'm trying
Hold on.
to get you to give an
So these-
exact explanation of what you're trying to get across.
I'm getting to the point here. The point is, if you have them coming with a plan, right? They've approved a plan and now it's being presented because it has some important changes to it on these areas that we have complete purview over right now. So they have to come to us for, say, zoning changes and conditional permit changes, then you have a second layer. So changes now have two layers of purview. So that's why we don't end up with piecemeal stuff. Because you have first the Harbor Commission saying, we want to do this, but it requires this conditional permit change or a conditional permit to be used on this thing. And then there's that second layer of approval. And that way we avoid big mistakes that have been made in the very recent past where
Okay, go ahead, finish.
Okay.
And then tell me like what.
Yeah. So
I need examples.
Okay.
very large mistakes that get made and approved at that level, and then all of a sudden they take off on their own momentum. And so these things have happened in the past. Whereas if you have 2 layers for these things of approval and such, you have more sets of public hearings, you have more decision makers on the thing. I mean, good ideas do make it through, but mistakes have one more barrier to getting through. That's the big aha in the whole thing.
So you are saying that the planning commission might not be as good at this as the Harbor Commission because they'll let stuff through.
We have no purview over anything that goes on at the water right now. And we're not asking for that either. But we want to stop anything that goes too nuts with these new areas that are part of the larger plan for creating a great open space with public access and amenities at the waterfront, and which we have the potential of doing now. But we don't want it to get out of control.
Okay, so I kind of like this discussion so far. Can you hold on just 1 second? So, Commissioner Gaddis, what mistakes have we made in the past? I mean, I could go on and on and on.
Huge mistakes.
The huge mistake, first off, was putting a wall of the village in front of the pier. The second huge mistake was building the Cape Cod top pier. The third huge mistake was putting all of those high rises along Esplanade and the Catalina.
And approving a shopping mall.
The fourth huge mistake was taking down our city center. Okay, so now we're actually dealing with that mistake, which was we had a town there when I was a kid. You know, I am old enough to know that. We had a town there that we shopped at and we frequented. There was a Woolworths, there was a fishing tackle store, there was a movie theater, there was all this hardware store, there was all this stuff down there that you would go to. We had a downtown. So here's my thinking. I do not want that to be a dumping ground, that triangle to be a dumping ground, because you know, we're very, very focused on the harbor now, which is great. This is what we're talking about, the harbor. But when you hit Pacific Coast Highway, Catalina, and Redondo, that is the gateway into that area. So all of a sudden, if we don't plan that area out, we have the possibility of making that very, very nasty. We could have a huge parking lot. We could have masses of boat storage that's 4 foot tall and they need a tractor to pull the boats in and out. I lived in Coconut Grove, Florida, so I know what that looks like. We could have, building or stores come in that just really aren't appropriate, that are maybe harbor centric, but not necessarily city centric. So I'm not against the idea. I think that Commissioner Gaddis's idea of keeping the conditional use permit actually is a really, really good idea, because the problem with me, you know, when this was first introduced to us was that, well, why wouldn't we want 14 people working on a concept? But we would get that if we retained the conditional use permits. And then the last thing before I pass it on is I don't think there's any reason for the Harbor Commission to get the parks, the Zuluga Park and the Veterans Park. That just really doesn't make any sense to me. I'm perfectly fine with the Gold's Gym north all the way up Catalina and down Redondo and that triangle in the map. But I don't honestly think there's any reason for them to get the parks. I think that was just added on kind of like as the last second, and there really isn't any reason for that. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on this so far.
I have a quick question. Director, just a quick question. Director Scully, if the boundary is moved to north, to east to Catalina and north to Redondo, east to Catalina, by default, does it become the purview of the Harbor Commission? Or does it even if you had the boundary there, even if the boundary was put there, you could still, the Planning Commission could still rule over that?
Yeah, I mean, the devil's in the details on that. We have in the zoning ordinance, the boundary delineated, and it's consistent with the purview. If we, of the different bodies, Harbor Commission, where we have the boundary now in the identified area. So if we move the boundary, we'd have to somehow, and we kept separate jurisdiction, we would have to tweak the language that the prelude to the exhibit to detail out how, in fact, the purviews would be separate in those areas. So it can be done anyway. If we're just changing the boundary, we'd have to change the language because the boundary delineates the purview. So if we wanted to have the boundary so that we looked at this as a single geographic area, if that's what I think you're getting at, but then bifurcate the purview, we'd have to come up with the language to do that.
The special zone.
So I think,
Yeah.
I think, what we really have to make sure is that, we have the amenities plan, right? Which is just brilliant. You guys did a great job on that, and it's just beautiful. We need an amenities plan for that triangle. And I don't know, so if city council just gets one message, it's, we need a plan for there. It is not the dumping ground for the harbor and the pier area. It is as important, I would say, if not more important, because that is where maybe a possible hotel would go. That is, maybe the dirt farm eventually would be a hotel, or the post office, or whatever, that's up on a hill. It's got a beautiful view once AES is gone. It needs a plan there. And if we don't do that, we risk just screwing up again, which we're very capable of in this city, as we all know. So if city council gets just one message from us, it's like, make a plan for that area, guys. Don't do it piecemeal. It's not a dumping ground. It's not for parking necessarily. It might be. It's not for tractor boat storage. It might be, but we need a plan. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Light.
Yeah, the parks, I'm curious about that, and maybe you have some thoughts on it. I did read what you guys sent, and it looked like this was made as a second motion for them.
Yeah, separate.
As kind of an either afterthought, or they thought it was a bad idea, so they didn't want to put it with what they thought was a good idea. I wasn't sure where that came from. The concern I have about the parks is, if it's the parks, why not get rid of all those condos too and put that into it? Because that means to me that they're going to do something with those parks, which we're park poor and we don't want to do.
Right.
And I don't want the harbor, people that are focused on making that harbor related, really messing with it.
Very good
That's
point.
my thought on that.
Good point. Yes, Commissioner Light. Commissioner.
The other one.
Yeah, Commissioner Craig.
I think maybe a better example for Commissioner Boswell might be, as we saw with the mall that they were attempting to stick in the harbor, that had impacts throughout the whole area. I mean, we would have been looking at PCH being a gridlock, and what's assuming it was successful. They were saying it's going to be over 12 or 13,000 cars a day going through it. And they also said Harbor Drive would be able to accommodate the same traffic volume that Pacific Coast Highway does, which seems insane now, but that was in the actual environmental impact report. But if we, it does make sense because to the degree that the AES site, for example, it does have a interaction with the harbor, and there's certainly a lot of shortfalls in the harbor that we could probably improve to make it a better area. Having them come up with ideas, suggestions for that area is good. I think because there already were in the past, they had some overlap, like in the parking lot that was right next to the AES site at one point in time. So I think that does make some sense, but having a check and balance, and as Commissioner Gaddis said, at least you've got two sets of groups of being able to weigh in on this thing before it gets approved. I would though say that the further part to the chairperson, Hazeltine's suggestion, I think that dirt farm, the other area up over there, I'm having a little more of a harder time seeing that has direct involvement with the harbor. I think it's kind of far away.
Oh, but it is included in there. Are you thinking of making the triangle smaller?
Yeah, only because that area up over here, it's not really adjacent to the harbor. It's not contiguous in the degree that, I don't know what the harbor commission would be planning on using over there. To your point, what if they decide to put a hotel or something over there, in this upper part here?
Yeah.
And right now, I know we can't do anything under the power lines, but even when they come down, there's a gas pipeline underneath it. Mr. Gaddis and I found out about that years ago. It's like a 12-foot or 14-foot diameter gas line. You can't build anything on top of that unless it's been it's going to be decommissioned. So I understand the principle. I think it's, to Mr. Boswell's point, or Commissioner Boswell's point, I think if we have two groups weighing in it, we're going to prevent like what happened with the Center Cal project. We won't have another monstrosity just because one rogue commission gets it through. But if we have overlap, and if we retain control for zoning, for the zoning, for the conditional use permits, and as was suggested, I think it's a better control. But I have a little bit of an issue with that dirt farmer over there. I don't see the direct logic to it. And Commissioner Light, I don't think the parks make much sense either.
Commissioner Boswell.
Okay. There's a bunch of stuff to address here. Number one, our ancient history of Redondo Beach being for sale is not what we have anymore. We don't need to protect against that anymore with the current administration and the current commissions. All of this bad stuff that happened could all happen again with the approval of city staff, city council, and all these commissions, because different people will be on it, just like they were during the waterfront debacle. And they will approve something that then the rest of the city goes, what in the heck's going on again? Okay, so whether the Harbor Commission has purview over this area or the Planning Commission, none of that is going to stop future administrations from doing stupid things. None of it. Okay, it's not a valid argument. It's not a good reason to change this.
Would it be more efficient?
I didn't get to interrupt.
Oh, sorry.
Adding a second layer of bureaucracy, according to Commissioner Gaddis's plan, just bogs things down and creates more confusion and distances the understanding that the residents have over what the heck's going on down at the harbor. The Planning Commission, as long as the city council and the mayor appoint appropriate people that are qualified to be on the Planning Commission, like they almost have to do with the Harbor Commission because of the limitations, then this is not going to be a problem. People on the Planning Commission, the quality of the people on the Planning Commission are what's keeping piecemeal, bad projects, Redondo being sold off to the highest bidder, or the developer that is paying for your kids' braces, or however that works. I still am not seeing a proper consideration for changing the border on who gets to decide over what, especially when we are concerned about stuff like if the Harbor Commission says we need a place to put 5,000 boats, let's just put them up there, and we have exactly what you're afraid of. If the Planning Commission is the only one deciding on that, it's easier to stop, or it's easier to scale back, or it's easier to put it underground, or however it needs to happen for it to work. I think that all of these arguments are actually arguments that are intended to say this is a good idea, but in fact are telling us it's a bad idea. Plus, once this triangle is developed, that's pretty much it. And there's really not much of a reason for the Harbor Commission to be involved anymore anyway. I think that as far as our discussion so far and the facts that we have, and there may be more that come to light later, but as this stands now, I'm still not seeing a good reason to make a major change like this. I just don't see it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Boswell. I'm sorry. Oh, yes, Commissioner Conroy, do you mind?
No, that's
Okay, yeah.
Okay, now I was just going to say, so what I call this would be the golden triangle.
Yes.
Right? It's the area. First of all, I don't think that this is like a power grab by the Harbor Commission. I think that they're doing exactly what their job is, and that's to look out for the best interests of the harbor. Our job as the Planning Commission is to look out for the best interest of the greater Redondo Beach area, the city. There's some overlap here. As the harbor continues to develop over time and grow over time, it's not going to be restricted by Harbor Boulevard. There's going to be growth beyond that into this Golden Triangle. I feel that, look, I'm not an advocate for additional layers of bureaucracy, but I think as it relates to this triangle, it's important.
Oh, it's really important.
It's important that we get it right. We've all said the same thing regarding that. So as it relates to this, 2 commissions reviewing something, 14 rather than 7 people putting their heads together and coming up with a joint recommendation, or maybe even some alternate recommendations based on harbor-specific needs, city-specific needs, and presenting that to City Council would be a good thing. So, and then to Chairperson Hazeltine's recommendation regarding the parks, I absolutely agree with that. They're not going to be putting dry storage at Veterans Park. I don't see where there's ever an extension of the harbor that goes into the parks. So those are my thoughts.
Great. Okay, Commissioner Gaddis.
Yeah, I'm willing to concede that it's a bit of a stretch for Zuliger Park and Veterans Park to be put under the Harbor Commission because they're not really harbor. I mean, maybe it's my lack of foresight, but I don't really see how they're integrated into the changes that and ideas for change that are present and have been discussed and are yet to come for the so-called Golden Triangle, which I like the term. But in terms of piecemeal and what happens when you don't have unified planning, I think we can look at the railway that used to take lumber away from the Redondo Pier, and that railway right away was abandoned sometime 1950s, 60s. And Manhattan Beach had the foresight to buy that right of way and to turn it into a park, essentially, with the wood chips, and now it's a running path. Hermosa Beach had the foresight to buy that right away, and these were controversial decisions at the time because it was just an abandoned rail right away, and people are like, well, I mean, it isn't the shape of a park. What are you going to do with it? I mean, why not put, and the ideas came up, let's put houses on it. Let's put businesses on it. Let's make it an industrial district. That's what it looks like. It's a rail right away, right? But they didn't. They had the foresight to buy them and turn them into wood chips running paths. And I'm sure you've run on them. I've run on them many, many times. I think they're the most awesome things, especially when it's windy down at the beach and you're up there, you're in the sunshine, you have trees. The wood chips are easy on your knees as you're running on them, and it goes a long, long way, and you come back, you see people and birds, and it's beautiful. What did Redondo Beach do? What did Redondo Beach do? Redondo Beach put a U-store on it. Yeah. No, we don't have a park. We don't have a running path. You run down that beautiful path. It ends right at a self-storage unit. But it's
a nice one.
That is, when you end up with one commission approving crap like that without any foresight or vision, you end up with a self-storage unit instead of a beautiful running path park that you can use. So
I would have to
Anybody in the
interject.
public want to have a comment? Did anybody? Go ahead. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't, yeah.
Just real quick, I just want to interject that the history is a little bit wrong, coming from a guy who lived a block from where that railroad was going in Hermosa Beach. But the fact that we have a self-storage facility where we could have had a park is not because there weren't 2 different commissions overseeing it. It was because we had one commission full of yes men who just did what they were told, which could happen again.
Right.
And if it could happen again, that same mayor will appoint those same kind of people to all the commissions.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get at is that it's not, bad things didn't happen because of commissions. Bad things happened because of multiple commissions not making decisions. They happened because there were inappropriate people on those commissions.
Hi.
No worries. Hi, Leslie Krazan, District 2 and Chair of the Harbor Commission. Appreciate all the thought and conversation, a bunch of random points that I wanted to get to. This came to us from the council, so we didn't dream this up. And, that red line came to us from the council. They drew that. So, or the city staff. It definitely wasn't a grab like you were saying, Mr. Conroy.
Nobody's calling it a grab, are they? You did.
Some points were made about the importance of this triangle in the general plan update, GPAC. We were told to ignore that triangle, even though it was so important to the entrance to our city. So your point, Chair Hazeltine, is right on about it is a gateway to our harbor. And certainly the idea is it's not, hey, now this is in our purview and we can plop stuff, change things out and put things there. It's to have a cohesive plan. And it's certainly not, Mr. Boswell, of you guys not doing it well. It's that things come to you piecemeal without the plan, and you do a great job of executing, but they're coming to you piecemeal. And so if they came to the Harbor Commission, who is helping to execute on the amenities plan, then we have that plan deep in our knowledge of how bits and pieces fit. And I guess we did not talk about the CUP idea. I do wonder, part of the trickiness of the triangle and the harbor, I guess let me backtrack one thing. On the amenities plan, we kind of had at one point an arbitrary line of where we took things. And we're like, well, the waterfront goes all the way to Redondo and it goes all the way to Torrance Boulevard. So we can't redesign the promenade just to these points in the middle. We need to go all the way. So that is part of, and I'll get back to that's part of why the parks came into play. But with that was also the traffic, the circulation, the parking, and everything that's going to have to be analyzed to execute on the amenities plan, and the different elements of the plan is certainly going to impact Redondo, Catalina, that whole area, right? And so having that cohesive, look at everything with it falling in the Harbor Commission would make things we could make smarter decisions. So I do wonder if the CUP stayed, I don't know how that works, like if there are parking, traffic flow, or hours of operation, things that, where does that reside best to have that full view? I don't know. We were thinking Harbor Commission, but I don't know, maybe there's some in between. And then the two parks was certainly not to plop new things down in the parks.
Time.
It was all the things.
Motion to extend.
Second?
Oh.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Was certainly just the things that we're doing all along the promenade and the harbor for signage, improvements with pavers or lighting or those types of things, the aesthetic, the look and feel, that is certainly the entrance to the harbor from that side. So we'd want to be smart and not have, things just stop and be different at that part of the entrance to the harbor. And so that's why those two parks were mentioned as adding. Greg might be able to comment more, but that was really the way I saw that introduction of those two ideas.
Can I ask a question? Does anybody have any problem with that? Since it's not a public, okay. Is there a chance, and I don't want to sound all negative, but is the amenities plan just too big if the things that are required can't fit in it? Is there just too many things in it? We're having a boat ramp, that's all been decided. A boat ramp requires so much parking, that's been decided. So is that maybe part of the problem? It's just too big.
I don't think it's too big. What came about in the amenities plan wasn't grand. It really was improving and adding elements at scale of what we have now. But I do think that once you get into the details of parking and traffic flow and things like that, it could bring things to light where we were like, oh, I wish we could, I don't know what, but maybe there would be things that you would want to tweak here and there. And if you had this cohesive area, you could make smarter decisions.
Right. And do you see the benefit, or would your commission see the benefit of having a plan in the Golden Triangle prior to So we know, okay, so this area could be parking. I think in the blue folder item, we had a really nice visualization of where some parking might go. And of course, it includes all the lakes and everything else. That it absolutely, nothing gets done until a consultant is hired, a plan is, put in place, and from there, we build on it. I have a problem with going step one before, step three, rather, before steps one is done.
Right.
What do you think?
I think they could be done in parallel of moving it over to the Harbor Commission, but I do agree with you that this area has been ignored, like in the GPAC, and it is tricky, like we're talking about, like above the dirt pile or like, I don't know, and I do think you could come back years later, there's probably no mechanism to make that happen, but, down the line and say, let's make new maps. But I think that would be a smart idea to have a larger...
design.
Yeah, because it was just...
Yeah, and the general plan, by the way, the GPAC was a committee to kind of hash it out, but first stop is actually in the Planning Commission. So the idea that we can't touch that triangle, I'm sorry, but it's wrong. We can and we will, because it's really, really important. And we know the issues with AES, so of course, we don't know where that's going. But that's 55 acres. We still have another 25 acres that needs to be discussed. And so that can't be off limits, Did you have a question, Sheila?
I do.
Go ahead, Mr. Boswell.
No, go ahead.
I have a comment.
Okay, go ahead. Hold on, yeah.
So did I hear you correctly that you believe that the Harbor Commission would be in support of a plan for this Golden Triangle area?
We didn't talk about it.
Talk about it.
No.
Okay.
But having served on the GPAC, I just know that it was a frustrating area that we couldn't touch. And so, yes, it comes to the Planning Commission, but it was still an area where there wasn't the discussion that should have been had on what do we envision? What do we want this gateway to look like or have? Or, that kind of thing hasn't been deep dived.
So you also said, in terms of an integrated plan, the Harbor Commission's idea, and I think it's written in here, that you wanted to have you wanted this property to be integrated into the greater harbor plan or
Correct.
area.
Correct.
Correct. And you talked about the amenities plan, and you said something about signage, right? Can you explain what you mean a little bit about that? How would about what you were thinking and how efficient, time-wise, it would be in implementing what you're talking about?
Greg can step in, but I think as it stands now, whatever we would do in executing the amenities plan in the yellow box, the city could have an RFP out and do it. And then if Parks and Rec said, oh, we should do this for these two parks, for example, then it would be inefficient in that they would probably, then they'd have to let another RFP and.
Instead of doing another RFP.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have some?
Or just, and then it looks disparate.
Right. Then at different times with different, maybe later, there wouldn't be that sort of remembrance, they did that back 5 years ago, right? Well, let's do something different.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So those are the kind of details that you're concerned about.
Right.
That's where the integration would be lost.
Yeah, that's when we were talking about those two parks, yeah.
Right, whether it's the park or it's the triangle. Same kind of thing?
I think the triangle could be greater than that, but it's I don't think we know until the details of like traffic studies and those things come to light, where we have this great amenities plan, but what if some of these results say, you know what, you just don't have the space, or there's this constraint that we didn't know about until we got into the details, and then we would just have to drop it, or be like, you know what, there's this,
Right.
like maybe the
You see-
education center, like, I don't know, like this plot of land is too small, but we could do this great thing across the street. I don't know, or things like that. It's until we get into the details of the studies, I don't think we're
Yeah.
going to know.
I can interject a little bit too, just on some of the questions that have been raised, and that is, the amenities plan, it's great, it's a comprehensive angle. It's really meant, its whole purpose is to increase activity and to increase people coming down to the pier. The only new element that's in the plan that we currently don't have is the boat launch. But there's a recognition that that boat launch is going to increase parking demands. It's going to require trailer parking. It's going to require very precise ingress, egress with large trucks, with large trailers dragging them, queuing areas, turnaround areas. It's going to require a lot of space. So it's the only new element, but it's changing the dynamics of the surface parking lot as foremost a lot.
Is that currently in the parking lot that exists now? That's where that's envisioned, right?
Yeah, Mole D, which is where that old Sambas was.
Okay, gotcha.
Right, that's where it's earmarked. The rest of the amenities plan is really just making what we have better. And there's a recognition that when visitors increase and when activity increases, there's going to be spillover to this adjacent Golden Triangle. And vice versa, when the Golden Triangle gets developed, however it gets developed, is going to have an effect on our existing space down in the harbor. And to have one commission that is inherently studied and aware of all the studies, parking studies, demand studies, traffic studies, weighing in on these matters with you guys is beneficial.
Yeah. Okay, Commissioner. Yeah.
So I have a question about the different uses that are potentially within the Golden Triangle. I mean, obviously, we have a mandated restoration of wetlands and such. So that would fall under this whole thing. But we also have other things, and I don't know how much they've been discussed, the idea of a water infiltration that was supposed to go in Hermosa over on the Greenbelt, and the potential of it ending up here. Again, has it been studied? I don't know, but it's certainly a strong potential, I would say, because there's certainly funding, that it had been funded and such. And it's a very desirable thing to keep, about the infiltration system.
Yeah, like
That was-
paused years ago.
Yeah, it was
right?
all the drainage from the hillsides and stuff, which is now going out into the ocean right by the Redondo drainage right there. Polluted water, the beaches have to be closed, it's really bad. And the idea is capture it, clean it, pump it back into the aquifers, and that keeps all the garbage and pollution out of the ocean right there. So it's something everybody wants. We had funding to do it. Hermosa backed out at the last minute after we had actually spent money on it and such, because they didn't want it built in the Greenbelt right next to those apartment buildings and such,
Right.
between 2nd Street and Redondo at the Greenbelt. And the idea is, there's a potential of moving
to
it over
solve it.
into that area, and it's something most everybody wants, but now this would sort of fall into the plan of, I mean, if this goes forward and this purview thing. So, I mean, are these things, is that sort of the vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's in our wheelhouse. We're redoing a pump station now down just across from the Redondo Hotel, basically.
Go ahead, Commissioner Boswell.
Were you in the middle of a sentence there? Sorry.
Nope.
Okay, that was a period. Okay, piecemeal again. So you mentioned that everything comes to the planning commission piecemeal and things in that. And I hate to call it the Golden Triangle after the large opium growing region of Asia. Perhaps the dirt farm
is
is
a
a better
triangle.
way
Give it a better
to
name.
call it, but, the Golden
Gateway,
Hillside,
the Gateway
the
Triangle.
Golden Gateway, okay,
Right,
so.
the Gateway Triangle.
Technically, everything that comes to us and everything that comes to the Harbor Commission could be called piecemeal. What I'm getting at is that if the Harbor Commission has a project that due to the nature of the project has to extend beyond the harbor, that would not come to us as only that piece that's outside of the harbor. It would come to us as a whole project. It would not come to us piecemeal. Anything that the Harbor Commission is trying to do outside of the harbor that is a harbor amenity could easily be coordinated with the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission uses its expertise to work in conjunction with the Harbor Commission to see if it can be made to happen. And of course, as we keep having to remind people, and this is something in the general population people don't get, these commissions do not create these things. They are given them, they deliberate them, and then they make recommendations to the actual decision-making entities like the city council. So for the public, remember, don't blame us for bringing this stuff up. We didn't bring it up. We're just going to decide on it, or we're going to make recommendations on it. We aren't even going to decide on it. So again, back to the piecemeal aspect of this, for the projects that are relevant to this decision, they would only be piecemeal if that's the way the Harbor Commission gave it to us. If you're not going to give us the whole project to evaluate as one holistic piece, then how do we trust you to make a proper decision if you should be given the opportunity to evaluate the project in its entirety all on your own? So these things would not come to us piecemeal. I don't think calling what the Planning Commission would do in this area as piecemeal is a reason to say we should have the Harbor Commission do the whole thing. That's not valid in my opinion, and that's why. I also think that area, as has been mentioned by a couple of people, north of the self-storage units, that big dirt area there, that's just not the harbor, okay? It's just not, okay? That should not be included at all. We just made a decision on a project at the old US Bank building. Explain to me how the Harbor Commission would have been able to make that same evaluation and recommendation. When everything you do is about the harbor, and this has nothing to do with the harbor, it's converting a bank building into a commercial enterprise. Somebody even mentioned something about what if someday this is developed and the post office isn't there? Well, where does the post office go and who decides on that? I think the Planning Commission is much more likely to say, I think we need a post office, and that's a good place for it, leave it there. Harbor Commission might say, it's also a good boat storage place. So I'm still not seeing anything that convinces me this is an important decision to make at this time. I'm asking somebody to sell me on this, and so far, I'm not buying.
I actually think the post office would be a terrible place for boat storage because it's there on Pacific Coast Highway. As
Exactly.
I'm saying, it is our gateway. Hello.
Exactly.
Okay. Sheila.
But we're not-
Commissioner Cherzan, to riff off of Commissioner Boswell's question, if the US Bank building had come to the Harbor Commission, what would be and we had already moved this red line and it was now considered harbor related or harbor adjacent property, how would you have treated that building? What would be some of your considerations as a commissioner?
Excuse me one second. I hate to interrupt. I'm sorry. Could we check on whether or not we're on YouTube? We just got a text that maybe it's dropped off.
I am aware that we are not on YouTube. I went back
Okay.
to the video room. For whatever reason, the IT connection wasn't able to connect and broadcast in that venue.
Okay, so then we could still get it through the city.
Another commission
I can go back and double check,
You two
though.
fell asleep.
See if they've been able to tune that
I'm sorry,
in.
Sheila, go ahead. I apologize.
Commissioner Cherthens,
Um, just
I hope I'm not
lost
putting you on the spot.
my train of thought.
Would you like her to repeat the question?
So it actually kind of touches on what Mr. Boswell is saying about piecemeal is things come to you and us at the time that someone wants to do something. There are plans, the amenities plan, that have things that are going to plan to execute in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. That's kind of the way that I see piecemeal coming into play of like, we know this is this for now, but when this opportunity comes along, in 15 years, we have this goal to do this thing, and then this would be the perfect spot for it. That's kind of one way you could think of it. So right now, no, there's nothing that, I don't know what came before you, but I'm imagining we would have done the same thing that you did.
Sort of absent a plan,
Because there is no plan
because there is no plan.
right now.
I think
Right.
that both commissions, okay, have to absolutely get the point out that we have an amenities plan for the harbor. We need a plan for those 75 acres. We cannot go forward with anything in that triangle until it's done. That will end up with piecemeal. That's the problem, and that's everybody's concern up here. If all of a sudden something gets thrown in there and we're like, oh man, but if we had it drawn out, it would have made sense to hide that here kind of thing, right? Or take advantage of the view from here for something else. I just, hearing that, well, maybe in 10 years we'll need something there and then we'll use, that just kind of makes me sick. I mean, only because I know the history of the city for, since the 60s, and I'm telling you, we're a mess. We have to have that planned before anything is decided in that area. And I think that that's the message that has to go to city council, and city council has to decide to do that. And whether the Harbor Commission does it or the Planning Commission does it, I see the benefit. I see Boswell. I see, Commissioner Boswell's point. I also see, after speaking with the mayor, he had some really good points to bring up, just as you also do. So I see both sides, but we have to really decide that we're not doing anything with that area until there's a plan. Because we could hide boat storage somewhere, but not if, well, all of a sudden boat storage goes in like the storage unit went in. The storage unit's a mess. We've actually got 2 huge places that do nothing but store stuff. So, I mean, that's a mistake. We can't let that, the 14 of us can't let that happen anymore. So we have to both say, okay, fine, Harbor Commission gets the triangle, but don't let that happen, guys. Don't do anything until you have a plan. It's so important.
Last comment, I think the 14 of us are on the same page.
We are.
Look and feel, aesthetics is a gateway. This is very important. There's some trickiness about, building out either area and one impacting the other, or not building out, but what goes in each place. So this is what came before us, and that was our recommendation. Maybe there's a third option that
Well, the
City Council will come up
recommendation,
with.
we give to the city council, and the city council will hear our deliberation, so they'll be able to say, okay, those are some good points. Let's decide
Right,
that we need a
right.
plan before we put storage, parking. I mean, okay, maybe it needs to go there. Maybe it actually can go in the gym, the Gold's Gym area. And maybe that would be a better place, because after all, it is closer to Samba's. That's a kind of a far walk. We have a boat. We know what it's like to put a boat. I know what it's like to put a boat in and wait for my husband from the hoist to go park the trailer. You're waiting a while. Now he's going to be driving on the other side of the street. It's going to be a trek. In reality, the Gold's Gym area would be much better. So we just, all 14 of us have to really decide that this is really important, that triangle be treated with respect, because it is, I could even argue that it's actually more important than the harbor. I could, because it is what people see first off. They're driving into Redondo Beach and boom, there's our beautiful sign. And off to the right is this whole area, 75 acres of land, which by the way is 10% of all of Redondo Beach's acreage. That's huge. That is a lifetime opportunity, once in a lifetime opportunity. So, I think we're on commissions for a reason. People want to hear our opinions. We're representing the public. We have to let the city council know, don't do anything yet, guys, until you get that fixed. I believe. Okay, Sheila.
Just another question. I think this is to staff, and that is there a time element here? Is there a concern that decisions have to be made quickly? Is there something pressing in terms of, like, for example, if our recommendation is a plan, would that be precluded by some limitation due to time, right?
You're referring to just how long it would take to get a vision for the Golden Triangle, and if that's a sticking point that needs to get done before this boundary is adjusted? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Well, not exactly, but what are the sort of the time pressures, sort of more broadly? What are the time pressures about this particular land and
The harbor or the triangle,
the
Sheila?
triangle? There's no pressures in particular, except for in the amenities plan. It's moving forward. It's on the strategic plan. It's in the capital project plan, right? What about this triangle? Are we here in this spot because, one, there's been no plan, and the other is there are other things going on in this triangle, right? There are other things going on in this triangle, and we've left it undecided basically with the, right? We've left it, the GPAC was not able to address it, so it's sort of, like fallow.
I think in terms of a timing perspective and the importance of adding this Golden Triangle, I think 5 years is probably a good number to reference, and that's because that's when Seaside Lagoon will be constructed or reconstructed, and that's the planning for when the new boat launch will have opened. Both those two projects are the two starting points for the amenities plan that will likely drive a larger number of people down into the waterfront.
Okay, so 5 years is a long time. I mean, we could get a plan for the Golden Triangle, couldn't we, in 5 years, I would think?
Hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Just a couple
Commissioner Conrad.
points. First of all, I don't remember, maybe it was Commissioner Boswell mentioned it, but yeah, I have a hard time seeing how anything north of Francisca should be considered in this Golden Triangle. Again, we're not going to be putting, we keep using the dry boat storage, but we certainly aren't going to put that next to the post office. So Francisca seems like a more meaningful line for that border, unless there's something more to the overall development of that area I'm not considering. So that was my first point. My second point would be, I still feel like, planning and harbor needs to have heightened communication. And I appreciate you coming to our meeting today. I think there needs to be more of that, not necessarily like this. Maybe it looks like a joint subcommittee, maybe, it's some sort of thing where we come to your meeting one time or you come to ours on another, but I think the communication needs to be high between the two groups.
Pizza.
Pizza, everyone likes pizza.
Commissioner Gaddis,
Gonna
you have
plant
something you
that
want to say?
No.
Anybody else?
I'd say
Okay, Commissioner Light.
75 acres sounded way too small to be 10%, and I just did the math, it's about 2%.
Oh, it is?
You scared me a little bit. I thought our city had shrunk.
Are we 74,000?
It's 4,000,
No, we're 70, how many thousand are the city?
a
70?
little less than 4,000 acres.
Population or?
No,
size?
acreage.
Little less than 4,000 acres. I just Googled it.
Yeah, but there's a long-running tradition of not counting North Redondo.
Oh, it's 10% of South
So it's
Redondo.
actually South Redondo is all I'm talking about. I have a question. So, all this talk about the the golden dirt triangle, why, for staff, why is that part of this? Why is that area north of our fashionable storage units in this map? Why did someone decide that that should be included in the Harbor Commission's purview?
Well, personally, I think it's because Catalina is your next major street, right? So when you're talking about increased traffic, increased tourism down to the harbor, everything between what is now harbor and is kind of our border right now, with a little exception there. All the properties in between the next, busy street is Catalina. So it makes sense that the properties that sit directly adjacent to the harbor are in that purview of that triangle there.
And what development or structures in that northern area are related to harbor activity?
As of right now, they're zoned, and I'm not looking at a zoning map, but it's all commercial for the most part. But I think, we're talking about a vision for this golden triangle, and it's a great discussion. But at the heart of this discussion really is the area in yellow now. We're going to find out a lot in this next year about the demand and the parking requirements and the supply and the circulation as we progress towards this boat launch. We're going to learn a lot about the harbor. Are we overparked? Are we underparked? What's the situation out there? And incorporating the area in the red, while we don't have a vision, it's simply allowing the commission that understands that traffic analysis the best to help you guys evaluate what gets developed up there. That's all private development. The difference between these two areas is the city is the owner of the yellow area, and we have final say over what gets built out there. To your point, the rest of it's private, and we receive applications from developers and from property owners, right? So there's no change in what the Harbor Commission would purview in that area than what you guys would look at. But there would be this inherent knowledge of the parking and the traffic circulation of the harbor and the potential impacts that whatever proposal is in front of them for the red area has, and vice versa.
Greg, that argument though, I could see, you have the Artesia Aviation Plan that is beautiful. That's, right? I mean, APAC, it's kind of like, we need something for that area like that. That's.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great discussion. We do
That's
need a
all
vision for the space,
Private.
but it's a little correct, but it's just not what we're considering tonight.
Right, absolutely. But
Right?
it definitely could be the message that we send.
Absolutely.
We can make the decision, but it can be the message that we send to the city council because they have to, I think they listen to us kind of,
Yeah.
they pay attention
think
to
so.
what we have to say. Yeah, Commissioner Boswell.
I was trying to get an answer from you about that northern part of the triangle above the storage units, not the whole thing, okay? So that area that a number of people here have said probably shouldn't be part of the red border. The red border should go through, is it Francisquita? What is it?
Francisca?
Francisquita's in La
Is that
Puente.
Gertruda?
So again, what is it about this area north of Francisca that demands that it be part of what the Harbor Commission can make decisions on? That section alone. What is there, or is there something planned there? And when you say their expertise with traffic studies and parking and everything, I will tell you, you have two people on this commission who are absolute experts at how bastardized the traffic study industry has become and how misleading traffic studies have become because of the way they have been whittled away by lawsuits over the many years to the point where they can actually be set up to show completely false information, and yet it's legitimate and there's nothing you can do about it. You have two people who have done deep dives on this and evaluated it, and I can't, is there somebody on the traffic commission? I mean, in the, not the traffic commission, they don't have that anymore. The Harbor Commission that has done that? Have you done that?
I haven't, I don't know
Has
about.
anyone on
my
there
other
done it?
commissioners.
It's not,
Because, so that, what,
it's
the point
knowing that-
that you can't
it's
do
more
it.
of a rhetorical question. The point I'm trying to make is, that's not, deep knowledge of parking and traffic studies is not a good enough reason to include an area so far from the harbor that no one would want to park their boat there anyway, or whatever else reason. So that's, the things that you've come up with, I just want to point out, are not selling me.
I mean,
Okay.
we keep talking about putting, specific uses out there. We can't do that.
Exactly.
We can't do that.
So should there come a time when you feel that you need to, that's when we should be addressing this, because right now, it's a commercial area to be developed that will most likely be developed over the many years, exactly like the rest of PCH, and not like the harbor. It's not a harbor-related piece of geography, at least anytime in the
Actually,
near future.
if I may, there actually is, that zone is commercial 5A, and within that zone, the permitted uses includes coastal-related uses, ship chandlers, sail manufacturing, boat fittings, marine research and labs, boat building. So it does,
Manufacturing
it is currently,
and harbor-related services
right.
are irrelevant to the fact that a certain building of certain requirements needs to go there. What you do inside that building, if you're making sales or rebuilding diesel engines for oil tankers, doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I agree. But the point is, it's recognized by its location to be coastal related.
So
it's-
that right there then says, just because it's coastal related is not a good argument.
That speaks to how it's included in this,
If they're
in
going to
this
build a
red.
channel and
area.
create another
Commissioner
harbor
Boswell?
for yachts to be parked, that's different. Now it's a harbor. Now it's an extension of the harbor. But if it's going to be more stuff like what the US Bank building was turned into, or it's going to be made into a light manufacturing district for nautical products,
Right.
none of that is harbor related.
Commissioner
The other
Boswell,
point
can
seemed to be
we hear-
that the entry points, that's what I heard you saying, that that's, those two streets, Redondo and North Catalina, are entry points to the harbor. Is that your explanation?
Yeah, I mean, we see, it's underutilized land.
All the
It's,
streets
But there's
go to
no
the
other way
harbor.
to get there.
Yeah, you can come down 190.
Okay, excuse me, Commissioner Lamb wants to speak.
Come down Torrance.
So I'm interested in the zoning here. You just mentioned that the uses are coastal related. Does that mean that the zoning there is coastal commercial?
it's not, no.
So-
But it's kind of a transitional zone. It's the only one of our not CC zones that does have a special category for coastal related, and it's because of where it's located.
So I think one of the problems that we're running up against is whether or not this area should qualify as coastal or coastal adjacent or coastal commercial, right? There appears on the commission here that there's some question about whether it's relevant to consider those coastal related, that the property be zoned appropriately as coastal. I'm hearing this is gateway, right? Coastal gateway. I'm hearing, but we don't have anything really substantial here. I think if we had more substantial information that, and zoning that pointed to the fact that there was an intention to make this coastal related, that anything in this triangle area would be coastal related, I think we'd have a little better handle on whether or not the purview needs to be in the Harbor Commission. I think that's one of our challenges in making a decision. I have another question, if you don't mind.
Can I just riff just 1 second off of that? I think that with the electric company being there, the current zoning that exists kind of makes sense because it's very kind of industrial, right? So here you've got this massive electric company, so who the heck cares what goes around it? But once that guy comes down, everything changes. So we have to look past that. The whole thing has been designed as, behind the Edison company. It's kind of ugly. So go ahead, Sheila, sorry.
Well, I was going to go to another question that's.
Go ahead, yeah.
So in terms of process here, we've had a lot of conversation. This is not a hearing, so we don't close the hearing, right? So how tonight, how is it that you are going to communicate what we've said here? Do you want us to come to some agreement? Do you want, I'm not seeing you writing anything down, you might be, but I'm not seeing that, right? How is our conversation today going to be communicated to the council?
So I would suggest we take a straw poll of the various ideas that I've heard tonight. Obviously, the first straw poll would be, would be 2 straw polls. Do you support the 2 recommendations from Harbor Commission? And then we can get into the specifics of, adjusting the map as written with the caveat that conditional use permits be added to general plan amendments and to zone changes that come back to this group. I've also heard that this triangle should shrink to Francisco. We could do a straw poll on that. Or we could do a straw poll on keep everything as is. I've heard that from potentially one of the members here. I think straw polls would be the way to go so that we could message to council exactly what was discussed here in a staff report with, a majority vote of these items.
Okay, Commissioner Gaddis.
So I'd like my fellow commissioners to take a step back on this and look at the overall objective, and that is there is the possibility that the city will end up with the ability to do some things, whether something is in a district under the city's control, or I can't even tell you the structure. There are a lot of pieces of private property that are in the red golden triangle, as it is, such as the right-of-way, which could be owned by the city, given that it's not going to be used for power lines and such. So there's a lot of potential here, all of which should be planned. A vision should be developed and applied at some point soon. And so the idea is not to limit the vision, but in fact to look at all of this area, which is adjacent to the harbor, which is a recreational, public, and coastal-oriented facility, which is a wonderful thing, and an expansion of which can greatly benefit the city. And we shouldn't limit ourselves, I believe, to current uses or current boundaries, or the fact that certain buildings on there. I do believe that the changes to the bank property, for instance, it's probably a good example of piecemeal development, where the development of that abandoned bank wasn't considered to be part of a grander scheme of anything. It's just, let's take this abandoned bank and turn it into another use, without thinking, okay, well, how does this become part of something bigger and greater and of a hell of a lot more value than simply putting in another medical office, which could go anywhere. What does that have to do with being on a coastline or by a harbor? So, I mean, we can already see that the piecemeal is occurring. The Harbor Commission had no say in whether that was going to be, that bank was going to be a medical facility. We have to start to think a plan, a bigger plan, and one that, a vision that's consistent. And I think that with the Harbor Commission and the Planning Commission working together on this, along with the council and with Harbor Commission really spearheading the coming up with the plan, and then there are changes to zoning and changes to conditional use permits that result from the plan saying, okay, we'd like to change the conditional use permit of this power plant to be something else. You know, that those types of things it's a good place for the Planning Commission then to work with them, work with the Harbor Commission to say, okay, let's move this forward. Let's make the changes that are going to make this happen. And that's my recommendation. And that would involve, doesn't necessarily involve Zuliger Park necessarily or a Veterans Park, but to essentially allow, to give them the Harbor Commission the ability to be in charge of the first cut at the plan, and how does that fit with what the harbor does and all the amenities there, and then work with us on any changes to
Said plan.
to the conditional use permits and zoning and stuff like that. And that way we have two layers of things and we don't end up with a bunch of piecemeal crap, which is already happening.
Yes.
Right, well, already happening.
And that's my recommendation to.
Just a trail on that thought, question, Mr. Kapovich. In terms of expediting decision-making, specifically the CUP of the CUP process, right? Is there a time differential between how quickly a CUP is processed through the Harbor Commission versus the, and if something needed, if the Harbor Commission needed a CUP to be fast-tracked, is there a mechanism for that?
It takes the same amount of time
Yeah,
regardless.
no, the Community Development Department staff usually processes that CUP, working with Greg's office, but it's the same. There's no difference in timing, schedule, or otherwise between a CUP that goes to the Planning Commission or a CUP that goes to the Harbor Commission.
I'll add that this commission is a lot busier because you have the rest of the city. So the only aspect would be our agenda's a little lighter. It's easier to get on an agenda.
I think that's what I meant, right?
Oh,
It's more
okay.
quickly, it
Well-
may get,
The
time-wise, it would get, if it were with the Harbor Commission and there was a need to expedite, right? Would it come on to the agenda more quickly with the Harbor Commission than with the Planning Commission? And that differential, could that be ameliorated in some way, mitigated in some way?
I mean, it's less a opening on the commission end and a human resource workload issue, and we're doing it for both bodies. So it doesn't really change
Timeframe.
depending on,
okay.
you
It's
know,
the same department, same staff preparing the
Yeah.
conditional use permits regardless of what commission it goes to.
So if
right.
it goes into a pipeline, it's going into a pipeline that includes both the harbor and the planning. Is that correct?
Yes,
Commissioner.
Same pipeline.
same pipeline.
Okay.
Community Development, Planning Commission, Harbor Commission.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Commissioner.
Thank you so much.
Greg.
Yeah, actually, for the record, I actually looked on Google Maps, it's North Gertruda, is that half, if you divided that big triangle into two other triangles, it's actually Gertruda, Francisca T-Bones, just before that. And I understand what you're saying about the usage now, Mr. Scully. I'm still trying to understand how we ended up with a fountain without water that's in that harbor-related area, right?
Electrical lines.
Yeah, under electrical lines. But I, maybe to follow up on something Commissioner Boswell was concerned about, I think that if we had this kind of double layer effect, it does I mean, you're right. If we have a turnover and we have a group of leaders that we had over the last 30 years, I don't know how we can prevent that because they could replace their own. However, at least if you have two groups looking at it, you have a lot more public interaction, a lot more public hearings, a lot more opportunities for the public to weigh in on things. I think that's really important. We saw that before when the Galleria project was done, the Planning Commission approved it in one night. That was crazy, the largest construction project in Redondo history, and they rubber stamped it in one night. That should have had multiple hearings.
No changes.
Right. And so this gives it ability at least to have some interaction with the public. I think it would be helpful for it. And so that's kind of my thoughts. And I already said earlier about the parks, but I still having a hard time with that north part of the triangle really having a lot of direct it just seems so far away from the harbor. I don't know how it would exactly relate to it. So my suggestion would be to, if anything, just cut that chunk out and leave the rest of it in.
Can we start taking straw votes?
I'd like to say
Everybody
one
okay
more
with
thing.
that? Yeah? Oh, one more. Did you want to say something?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Commissioner Boswell.
Once again, the assumption that having two commissions review something because we don't know who's going to be on these commissions 10, 15 years down the road, and that somehow two commissions are better than one for making sure bad stuff or inappropriate stuff doesn't happen is a false hope. If one commission is stacked with yes men and women, then the other one is going to be too. And they're going to collude in making bad decisions. This is not a reason to feel comfortable with saying we should have two commissions evaluating these things. The past has already shown us that this is what can happen when the wrong people get elected and start changing the people on commissions to the people that they know will support what they do. Much like the people that are on these commissions now that were supporting the good works of Mayor Brand and his vision of a more resident-oriented city. That isn't going to last forever. And when that changes, should that ever change, and enough money will make it change sooner than later, then the commissions are going to be just as corrupt. So this is not a reason to think that we're going to be safe in the future if we have two commissions. If we maybe require the whole city to vote on what the commissions do, maybe that will keep them in check, but I don't think that's even going to work. What we need to do is, I think, have a plan for the Golden Dirt Triangle hillside to eliminate what has already been called piecemeal development in relation to the US Bank building redevelopment, which I'm not sure if that's really piecemeal, but if there was a whole plan there and it didn't include medical offices, that wouldn't have happened. Something that would be cohesive to that northern tip of the triangle would be going in there, or would only be allowed to go in there. So I do think that's an important step. I think the border should not be Gertruda, it should be the AES property. Anything north of the AES property should remain with the Planning Commission, and that as you get south of the AES property, it picks up where that red line goes down Pacific. I think putting too much emphasis on the fact that Gertruda and PCH are gateways to Redondo is a bit misleading, because they're not gateways to Redondo any more than a gate between you and your neighbor is a way for you guys to get into each other's backyards and have barbecues. The real gateways to Redondo are on Inglewood Avenue as you exit the 405 freeway, coming down Artesia as you pass the Galleria, and coming down Torrance Boulevard as you cross the Torrance border. Those are the gateways.
Well, you do cross from Hermosa to, I meant the harbor. I meant The gateway to the
gateway
harbor.
to the harbor, it's
says on the
still
top.
not how most people who would come to Redondo Beach would get here.
Okay,
They would
but
not be coming from
You saying
Hermosa.
arbitrary Inglewood versus arbitrary First
More
Street
people,
Hermosa
trust
is
me,
is ridiculous.
More people come to Redondo Beach by exiting the 405 at either Inglewood or Artesia than any other
Well, I don't know that.
place.
We have like 5 gateways, okay? That's all.
We have five
But, okay,
streets that connect us with
Commissioner Light
other
wanted to
cities.
say something.
Yeah, I appreciate Commissioner Boswell's perspective there, absolutely. And I agree that having two correlated bodies making decisions isn't going to do any good at all. My hope would be, though, and what I'm leaning toward is Commissioner Gaddis was saying, that if we could come up with a way of both commissions having partial say in that area, I think we would have one more level of protection.
Partnership.
A partnership.
Certain projects should be partnerships.
Okay, so let's start with, I think we'll break it down into the little guys first. So who would like for the parks to not be included? It's Zuliger and Veterans Park. Should those be included? And that would be the second part of the thing we were talking about today.
So the question
And we'll
is,
start with
who wants them
who
included?
supports not including the parks with the triangle? Okay, Commissioner Lamb, do you want the parks included with the triangle?
No.
Okay, Commissioner Conroy,
No.
Commissioner Gaddis.
I would like them included.
Okay, Commissioner Craig,
No.
Commissioner Boswell.
What parks? No. No.
Commissioner Light.
It's a close call, because I do see the point of the entry there, but I think no.
Okay, and I'm also a no, so that would be 6-1. Okay, so then the next thing that we discussed, or one of the things that we discussed would be, we could break this up into 2. One was that the eastern boundary be the border of AES. Okay, so that's what Commissioner Boswell just recommended. What do you think about that?
No.
And Commissioner Conroy?
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis?
No.
Commissioner Craig?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Boswell?
What if I said no? I'll go, yeah. I'll go with yes. I think it was a good idea, whoever came up with that.
Okay, so that's the eastern border would be,
Because look at what you have
AES.
is, as you get past the self-storage, now you have office buildings. It's all commercial office development. It's nothing to
that
do with
could
the
change.
harbor.
That
It's
could change.
it's easy to just use the border of the AS plan.
yeah, then that could change.
Yeah.
That would be a
Commissioner
yes,
Light?
right?
No, to make that
Not the border.
not the border. And I'm also a no. So I've
What was
lost
our-
count.
What was our score there?
I think that was 4-3.
Yeah.
No,
No.
4-3.
don't use the AES site as the border.
Who are
4-3.
the 3 yeses?
I was not a yes.
1-2-3, yeah.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, okay.
Okay,
Wait a
okay,
minute.
then the
So,
next.
Wait a minute.
Was that it? You wanted the border to
Commissioner
be
Lamb
north,
said
east
no.
of AES. You said no.
She said no.
She said not to use the AS border.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
and so did I. Okay. Okay, then the other one that we discussed, having the border be at Gertruda. Okay, so let's go with that, which is
And
the street.
Gertruda turns into, he points
turns
out.
into
it turns into
Francisca.
Okay,
at the storage
Gertruda
facility.
Francisca, which is between Catalina and Redondo, and I mean, 190th. Okay, so Sheila,
No.
Yes.
No.
Craig?
So just so I'm sure, we're talking about the upper part of that.
We're talking about the road that cuts through. Do
yeah.
we make that top area remain with the planning commission?
I'd say yes.
Yes. And Commissioner Boswell?
If we're not going to go.
Wait, the question has changed.
Changed.
You're right, you did there.
Is that the border or isn't it the border?
That's
Should
what
be
you
the
asked.
question.
Okay, should,
Francisca, right?
Yeah,
whatever,
Francisco.
should Francisca?
Could I make a proposal first and maybe start at where this is first and
Well,
see
we're
where
already
I
we
moving
think
that
if we
direction.
get
We'll get there
there,
eventually.
Yeah.
it's the
We'll get
next
there
question.
eventually.
Okay, it's the next question.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start over again in case I said it wrong.
Should Francisco be the border?
Yeah, should Francisco be the border?
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
And I'm a no. Okay. Okay,
So we
now
have
the
four-
next,
Four, no, it's not the border.
Right.
okay,
Okay.
okay. Now the next one is, do we include the Golden Triangle from Pacific Coast Highway down Catalina, Francis, the whole thing, Redondo and 190th in the Harbor Commission purview?
But that's what you just
But, no, the whole thing. No, the triangle on top. We're going all the PCH now.
As
The whole
proposed.
thing.
As proposed.
As proposed.
But I'm going to add this, which is with the conditional use permit. Okay, with
That
the condition.
CUPs come to this
No, that's a
commission.
second, that's
No,
another
Do
decision.
that as a second one, yeah.
Okay, separate one. So go ahead, Sheila.
Yes.
So you're saying
So-
the whole triangle?
Yeah, but not park. We already decided no on the park, so we're not going to talk about that.
No,
Just the
no, no,
park.
but they weren't in the triangle anyway.
Right, just the
Plan
triangle.
one.
Right.
Whole
But
triangle
the
as
triangle
presented,
goes
excluding
Redondo,
As
PCH,
proposed.
Catalina.
As proposed.
As proposed.
Harbor Drive.
Golden
As
triangle.
proposed.
As proposed.
Yes. Sheila.
Yes.
Conrad.
Oh,
Yes.
no.
Boswell.
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
So 4-3, as proposed, the triangle as the red triangle, right?
Right. Okay, now the whole entire triangle with Commissioner Gaddis' idea that the conditional use permits in that area remain with the Planning Commission.
No.
Is this our last vote on the subject, or will there be
I
other
think it
options?
might be.
It is.
This is it.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
So the whole triangle remains with the planning
The
commission.
only decision is whether CUPs stay with the planning commission. That's
stays
the
with
only
the-
decision
of
you're
the
voting on
triangle.
right now.
Goes to Harbor.
Stay with the planning commission in the red triangle.
Yeah, yes.
Even though the harbor commission.
Makes a recommendation.
Yeah, but that gives us all 14 that we talk about,
Right.
14 people.
Because
Okay, we know
we've already
things can
debunked the
change.
14 as some kind of.
Commissioner Boswell, we know things can change politically. That's politics. But does it sound like a good idea to have 14 people looking at
You
it?
said you're up for
No,
the
it sounds,
partnership.
it sounds like a bureaucracy, and it sounds like just more future manipulation of commissions.
Is that a
It's
no?
gonna happen
Is that
either
a
way.
no?
though.
No?
It's gonna happen either
Now
way.
there's another reason for it. We're giving them a very
gonna-
big reason for it.
No, but you're going to give them you don't want to maintain conditional use permits, is what you're saying.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh.
I haven't said
That's
anything.
Were you both?
I'm trying to understand why, after giving away all of this land, that we're just not giving them everything they want.
Are you just being like,
Yeah, I am.
okay?
So I'm going
just
to,
being
I'm
a
going
martyr?
to say that we should retain control.
Okay,
of
so
it.
you're a yes,
Continue.
Commissioner Light,
Yes.
and I'm a yes also.
So 4-3, or is it 5-2?
5-2.
5-2.
5-2, yes.
5-2,
Yes.
we do retain
CUPs.
CUPs.
So general plan amendments, zone changes,
Changes and
CUPs,
CUPs.
this body.
Yes, yeah. I think that's
Okay.
it.
I think we got through it.
We didn't talk about anything else, right? Yeah,
We will make
perfect.
sure that we talk about the vision.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Do we need,
that's,
would it help to do a straw vote on that we should have a plan? I think we all 7 agree
Oh,
on that.
yes.
yeah.
Okay, should we have this plan as soon as possible, ASAP, like next month? Okay.
Vision and a
Yes.
plan, yeah.
Sheila's yes.
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 So the question is, should we have a plan for this before the change?
No,
as
we
possible,
need a plan
whatever that
like
is.
next month, okay?
Before they,
No,
before
just
the,
ASAP.
before the harbor commission takes over this area,
No,
there should be a plan in place.
I think what we discussed is before as soon as possible, because we don't want any piecemeal. So that has to happen before the saltwater lagoon gets finished, where we know the parking or wherever it has to
Yeah, but
go.
that's not my question. My question, to understand what we're voting on here, is that, are we voting to, what are we voting on?
Recommend that the city council understand that
Okay,
it's
so-
really important to plan this area.
And I think they know that, but are we saying it should be in place before this transition?
That wasn't the question,
no.
Because I think it should be.
but it wasn't.
Okay. But we should still have a plan, but you're just
Okay.
saying, we'll have a plan, but get around to it as fast as you can, but we put no.
I think that the city council is going to think that's so brilliant. They're going to like talk about it on Tuesday. Is what I think. They're going to put it on their agenda and say, oh my God, that's a great
The
idea.
planning
We hadn't thought
commission
of it.
is acting, oh my God, the planning commission is acting jihadist again.
Okay, is that a yes?
Well, if that's, yeah, of course we need a plan.
Okay,
Why is
Commissioner
there even a
Klein.
vote? Why is there even a vote?
So of course is
Why
my
would we
answer as
not
well.
have a plan?
I'm of course also, and the city council's going to love us for this idea, okay? Okay, we want an amenities plan.
We are the planning
For the
commission.
triangle.
We'd like plans.
Right. Give us a plan, we are planners. Okay. I can't think of anything else. Like, you guys?
We got through it. I
We've
think
got direction, right?
crazy and wild ride, but we did it.
Okay, yeah.
Welcome to our world, okay? Okay, so let's see. I think that's that. Items from staff.
Yeah, I do want to talk just a minute about what we went through last night, the workshop
Thank
we
you,
had for the
Greg.
general plan update.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yes,
Greg.
thank you.
Mia.
Thank you.
I'm
very
sorry.
much.
So, and I provided in your blue folder item, the second blue folder item has all the materials we handed out last night at the workshop. The reason I wanted to include that in your package tonight was to get you thinking about the general plan update, which is going to be here in a couple of months. And it's a large document. It's online. Commissioner Gaddis, Commissioner Lamb, you guys were on that ride. You thought tonight was long. They were on a 6 to 7 year ride putting that document together. So, and then it's going to come through quickly. It's going to be here before you know it. So I'm encouraging you to get familiar with the document. Your charge, your purview will be to take in the entirety of that document. Not necessarily wordsmith it, but really honing in on the goals and the policies and the implementation measures. That's where all the projects and Commissioner Lamb, to her credit, and you all to your credit, she brings it up every time we have a conditional use permit and talks about the criteria and talks about its consistency with the general plan. All the projects that come in, they're going to have to connect to that general plan. So there's a lot of new policies that are in that document that sprang from the General Plan Advisory Committee, things like public view sheds and special policy areas that have additional policies in strategic locations, important locations, our corridors, Riviera Village. We have a bunch of policies now in Artesia and Aviation Corridor Area Plan. So it's a lot to digest. We're probably, the consultant is budgeted for 2 meetings before this body. I'll probably have a meeting, at least one before the consultant comes in to just introduce it, get it to you, start the discussion, or we might start with the consultant and then we might have a follow-up 1 or 2 with just me and the body, and then finish up with the consultant again. I don't know, we're kind of putting that together, but it's a lot. And I want you to start taking a look at those materials and getting really familiar with that. And that's all I have. That's the big item from staff.
Pretty exciting.
It is.
Okay.
And we do time.
Sorry, no, no. I was gonna say, we do have someone on, an attendee.
Oh,
Okay.
L1.
okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, there's no e-comments, and Mark Hansen, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand for L1. No, we're good. Okay, just wanted to make sure. for the
Okay,
record.
thank you
Okay.
so much. Yes.
Okay. So anyway, and there is, when you were talking about schedule, is there some urgency, moving this plan forward, let's say, there really is urgency on our general plan update. So there's, and I'll be, talking about, what the schedule is and what the consequences are if we're not able to advance it in a timely manner. And I'm sure we will. I mean,
Okay. So
So
the-
that's it.
The message there is bone up on it.
Yes.
Million pages.
Yeah.
And so that we,
I can't find that on the Redondo Beach website. Did you send it directly to our email?
Yeah, what there is in the blue folder items, there should be a link to that, but if there isn't, I can tell you, if you go to the Community Development Department webpage,
Okay.
then you go to
Community
the,
development.
here, I'm going to start from the top here. You go to the Plan Redondo dash General Plan Update. It's over on the related pages. And you click on that, and it takes you to the Plan Redondo site. And there's a link at the, on that page to the actual document, general plan draft document.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Question.
Yes.
Blue folder items, page 2 is a map of the Golden Triangle.
Oh, that was the blue folder item from Commissioner Lamb. So not page 2, the second blue folder item.
Did you make up that term, by the way?
Well, it was better than dirt
The
pile.
golden triangle?
Triangle.
Is that your term? Is that-
I don't know. It's just,
I was gonna call it
There's
the
an area
$5,000
of North
pile.
Redondo
Kinda caught
housing
on.
area called the Golden
I
Triangle
love
and
it.
Gate next to the Golden Hills.
Your question?
There's a.
my question was,
And there's nothing golden.
on this map, it doesn't show any type of development at all,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, that.
So I'm just saying that seems incongruent with what we're talking about as far as where we're going to put the dry storage for the boats and so forth.
Yeah, no, that's not something we
Okay.
we
So
can't really
this-
speak to that tonight. It's not an, as far as what any kind of plan would be for that area.
I know.
But that was just a blue folder item for your information
it
from,
was just for
Not
us.
official, it's just
an
an
FYI from Commissioner Lamb.
It was just for us to dream.
Got it.
We can talk more about that if you're interested.
And,
I have a question.
yes,
You mentioned what you want, your recommendation for us to focus on,
yes.
policy,
Goal,
implement,
yeah,
policy.
goals, policies, the implementation measures, those are, there's tons of great information and narrative in the elements. But what we have to utilize on a regular basis with all the projects, piecemeal or otherwise, are the general plan policies.
So Sean, how do we kind of guarantee that that Golden Triangle isn't off the table like it was with the
Well,
GPAC?
and I'll tell you, the direction from council was, there's only 2 uses really allowed in the majority of that area, the AES site and the right-of-way sites, and it's parks and the power plant. And
Right.
they didn't want any messing with that.
Right.
No, I
You
know.
know?
Well, that's that. But then you've still got the remainder, which is what, 25 acres? That's off
In
limits?
the right-of-way zone?
Well, we've got all the top of the triangle.
Oh, and along Catalina?
Yeah.
Well, we did have that. We did.
Well, for
that-
example,
that
let me
was-
give you, let me just be blunt. Okay, there's zone, the dirt thing is zone in industrial.
Right.
Huge thing would be accomplished by changing that.
No, so.
Keeping it,
so
we want to keep that.
That's been,
Stay on that.
yeah.
Oh, okay, that
So
can't
that-
be.
Why is that?
I see.
That was under consideration, and what is there now is what was determined through the process so far to remain.
Okay,
So
okay, I
we're
understand.
keeping that static, that's as directed by, GPAC's determination was to maintain the area, and city council's direction for per the draft land use plan was to leave it.
I understand. So the park is, AES is zoned park. I get it, so that
Yeah.
stays. Okay, I understand. Okay, anything else? Questions for Sean on this?
Sorry to interrupt, but we have one online attendee that would like to
Oh,
speak.
yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Mark Hansen?
I knew it.
Mark Hansen.
Sorry,
We forgot about you.
The Kings Harbor.
Hello, Commissioners. How you doing tonight? Mark Hansen, proud member of the King Harbor Amenities Working Group. Before I forget, one technical thing I want to mention, one of your constituents contacted me today asking where the meeting would be tonight. And when I went back and looked at the agenda in the space where normally the address is for like City Council, Harbor Commission, it didn't look like there's an address in there. So unfortunately, you didn't tell the public where your meeting was tonight. So everything you've done tonight, I'm sorry, you violated the Brown Act, and you're just going to have to do it all again next week. Sorry. Sorry, I
All
couldn't.
right, he's right. The agenda doesn't have an address on it.
Isn't that funny?
Chambers?
No address.
It's a city council chamber.
Well, it always says that.
Yeah, it's in council chamber.
That's what it says. This is the council chamber.
Right, but the City Council and the Harbor Commission, I know they have the address 415 Diamond. So anyway, I just thought that was humorous. At any rate, if I had been allowed to speak before you took all the votes, so it looks like we got a little process thing to work on there. I would have mentioned a couple things, but let me just hit a couple of the high ones. Early in your meeting, I heard this word dumping, all concerned about dumping. And boy, I can tell you as an avid boater, I've been down there boating for 65 years. I hang out mostly at that north end of the harbor. I've never had that concern at all. There's all kinds of fun, exciting things that could be done on the AS property. So I would dump the word dumping when you think about that stuff. There was an interesting question early on about is there anything harbor commissioners can do better than planning commissioners? Well, I know like at least four of you on a personal level. You're all smart, great people and can do wonderful things. But the harbor commissioners do have some special talents. And I want to point out that on that harbor amenities plan, we had 3 harbor commissioners serving. So they are intimately familiar with a full year's work of where we're going to place the amenities and then how that might coordinate with the AES property. And finally, I want to mention, I think at least 4 out of 7 of the harbor commissioners are boaters. And to someone's point earlier about, well, somebody could be a lawyer who's never been boating. That's absolutely true. But 4 out of 7 of them are boaters, and they're down there on a weekly, almost daily basis and have an intimate understanding of how the harbor works. So those folks do have some special talents that I think you'll enjoy working with them. So anyway, that's it for now. Hey, thanks for all the hard work you guys did tonight. I think this will move forward up the harbor.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that, Mark. Any commission items or referrals to staff?
So we're doing this over?
You're looking forward to that, I think.
Yeah. Could I get a motion to adjourn
Motion to adjourn.
and a second?
You don't have a chance.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. So be it.
I'm going to see how attentive